found him dying in a parking lot. A stranger with eyes that burned amber and red, bleeding 3 colors that shouldn't exist. Iris had $1,200 left to her name. Money saved for the surgery that would fix the knee that ended her military career. She spent it all to save him. What she didn't know was that he came there to die. What she couldn't know was that he'd been sent to kill her. And what neither of them expected was that touching him would bind their souls together in a way that hadn't happened in 600 years. A connection so deep that when the hunters came for him, they came for her too. Now they're running from angels and demons who've formed an impossible alliance for the first time in history. Now she can see his memories. 300 years of loneliness, 47 deaths he couldn't prevent, and the weight of being the last of his kind. Now he can feel her pain, the trauma that got her labeled crazy, the gun she almost used, the choice to keep living that brought her to him. They have 48 hours before the great hunt returns, with enough force to erase them both from existence. They have one impossible option that's never been tried, because everyone who attempted it died screaming. And the man she saved with her last dollar? He just told her the only way they both survive is to stop being 2 separate people entirely. The man lying in the parking lot wasn't breathing right. Iris knew this the way she knew when an animal was minutes from death. Something in the rhythm, the desperate, shallow pulls of air that said the body was forgetting how to live. She'd seen it in the stray dog last week, the one she'd held while it died because no one else would. She was seeing it now in the stranger collapsed against the dumpster behind her clinic, and every instinct screamed at her to walk away. She didn't walk away. Hey. Her voice came out rough. Night shifts did that, stripped her down to the raw parts. Can you hear me? He didn't respond, didn't move, but his chest rose and fell in that wrong, stuttering way that made her knees hit the asphalt before her brain caught up. Up close, the wrongness multiplied. His skin alternated between ice and furnace. Her hand on his neck pulled back from cold, touched his face, and found fever. Impossible. Medically impossible. His lips were blue-tinged, but sweat poured down his temples. Shit. The word barely made it past her throat. She fumbled for her phone, thumb hovering over. 911. And that's when she saw his eyes. They opened slowly, and Iris forgot how to breathe. One eye was the color of amber held up to sunlight, glowing faintly in the darkness of the parking lot. The other was red, not bloodshot, red like garnets, like the warning lights on her Jeep dashboard, like something that shouldn't exist in a human face. Both eyes focused on her with an intensity that made her stomach drop, and then his hand shot out and gripped her wrist. His touch burned and froze simultaneously. Don't. His voice resonated wrong, like 2 people speaking in harmony a half step apart. Don't call them. You need a hospital. I need to die. He said it simply, the way someone might say they need coffee. Matter of fact. Final. Alone. Please. The please broke something in her chest. She'd heard begging before. Animals in pain. Soldiers in the field screaming for medics. Her own voice after they'd discharged her for seeing things that weren't supposed to exist. But this please carried 3 centuries of exhaustion. She didn't know how she knew that. She just did. What's your name? Stupid question. He was dying. But her training kicked in anyway. The military protocols that said keep them talking, keep them conscious. Samael. The dual voice wavered. His grip on her wrist loosened. Last of... It doesn't matter. Last of what? His laugh was a broken sound. Everything. Then his eyes rolled back and his hand fell away, and Iris was moving on instinct. She'd done this before. Field triage, deciding who lived and died with seconds to choose. Her fingers found his pulse. Erratic. Too fast then, too slow, then barely there. She ripped open his jacket and her breath caught. Scars covered the left side of his torso. Not surgical scars. Burn patterns that looked like someone had tried to brand symbols into his skin. geometric shapes that hurt to look at directly, like staring at the sun. The right side was worse. Tattoos crawled across his ribs in black, ink that seemed to move in her peripheral vision, sigils that made her eyes water. She'd seen something like this before. Afghanistan. The thing in the cave that everyone said was a hallucination, that got her discharged and labeled unstable. The thing with too many shadows and eyes that saw through her. "You're not human," she whispered. Samael's eyes flickered open again, the red one fixed on her. "No. What are you?" "Mistake." He coughed, and something dark that wasn't quite blood-flecked. His lips. "Abomination. Nephilim. Pick your word. They all mean the same thing. Shouldn't exist." Nephilim. The word hit her like a physical blow, dragging up memories she'd buried. The chaplain in boot camp talking about angels and demons, and the things in between. The classified report she'd glimpsed before they sedated her, the one that mentioned hybrid entities and threat level apocalyptic. "The thing I saw," she said slowly, "in Afghanistan. That was real." "Yes." His amber eyes studied her. "You have a mark. Witnessed a veil tear. That's why you can see me clearly. Why I can't lie to you even if I wanted to. Can't lie. Testimonial mark. Rare. You see truth whether you want to or not." His breathing was getting worse. "Lucky you." Iris looked at him. Really looked. At the scars that told stories of torture. At the tattoos that looked like prison sentences. At the way his body was literally tearing itself apart. One half burning up, the other half shutting down. She thought about the $1,200 in her checking account. Her last savings. The knee surgery she'd been delaying for 2 years, because the VA wouldn't cover it, and she couldn't afford to take time off work. She thought about the dog last week. How it had looked at her with that same exhaustion, that same please let me go expression. She'd held that dog while it died because someone should. Because dying alone was the worst thing she could imagine. "How do I help you?" The words came out before. She could stop them. Samael's eyes widened. Both of them, amber and red in perfect shocked synchronization. "You don't. You leave. I came here to die quietly without... How? Do I help you?" She gripped his shoulders, feeling the unnatural temperature fluctuation under her palms. "You want to die? Fine. But not in my parking lot. Not on my watch. I'm getting you stable first, then you can make that choice when you're not half conscious." "Why?" The question was barely audible. "Because I know what it's like." Her throat was tight. "Everyone thinking you're crazy, seeing things that aren't supposed to be real, being alone with that." She met his eyes, both of them. Nobody should die alone, not even mistakes. Something crossed his face, an emotion so raw it hurt to witness. His amber eye started glowing brighter, and for a second she saw something behind him. A wing made of light, but wrong, bleeding at the edges. Then it vanished. Iris. Her name fell from his lips, and she realized. She hadn't told him. Veterinarian, 27, ex-military, dishonorable discharge for psychological instability. His dual voice cracked. "You can't afford to help me. You need that money for surgery, your knee, combat injury. 3 screws and a torn meniscus they didn't fix properly." She stared at him. "How?" "Testimonial mark works both ways. When I confess truth, you feel it. When you demand it, I can't refuse." His hand reached up, fingers hovering over her face without touching. "You feel me right now, don't you? The loneliness. All of it." He was right. Something was bleeding into her awareness. Not thoughts, but sensations. Centuries of isolation. Watching others like him die one by one. Being hunted by everything in existence. The crushing weight of being the last. The unbearable exhaustion of surviving when survival meant only more pain. Tears burned her eyes. Jesus Christ. He doesn't answer Nephilim prayers. Samael's hand dropped. 300 years. I've tried. Iris pulled out her phone. Not 911. A different number. What are you doing? Calling someone who won't ask questions. She waited through 2 rings. Marcus? It's Iris. I need veterinary IV fluids, thermal blankets, and broad-spectrum antibiotics. Yes, now. No, I can't explain. I'll pay cash. That's your surgery money, Samael said weakly. Yeah. She ended the call. It is. Why would you? Because you said you're the last. She looked at him hard. Last of what? His eyes closed. When they opened again, both were dimming. My kind. First-generation Nephilim. Direct offspring of fallen angel and human. We're not supposed to exist this long. The others died centuries ago. Executed. Suicide. Disease we call fragmentation. Our 2 halves literally destroying each other. His breathing hitched. I'm the final one. When I die, that chapter of history ends. Everyone's relieved. You have fragmentation. It wasn't a question. She could see it now, the way his body was at. War with itself. Terminal stage. Irreversible. His laugh was hollow. Hence the plan to die alone where nobody has to clean up the mess. But you... His dual voice broke completely. Why aren't you afraid of me? Iris thought about the best answer. Gave him the truth. Because apparently they couldn't do anything else. Because I'm tired of being afraid of everything. Marcus arrived 20 minutes later with a duffel bag and a look that said he'd learned not to ask Iris questions years ago. He was good like that. Former Army medic turned vet tech. Understood that some things didn't have explanations that made sense in daylight. He handed over the supplies, took the cash she'd withdrawn from the ATM on the corner, and left without a word. Smart man. Samael was unconscious when she dragged him inside through the clinic's back entrance. Dead weight that alternated between scorching and arctic, making her hands blister and go numb in intervals. She got him onto the examination table meant for large dogs, and the absurdity of it almost made her laugh. The last Nephilim in existence, dying on a stainless steel table covered in fur from this morning's golden retriever. She worked fast. IV line in his arm. His veins glowed faintly under the skin, gold and black threading together like competing highways. The needle went in easier than it should have, as if his body was too tired to resist even that small invasion. Fluids running. Thermal blanket that did nothing for the temperature. Fluctuations, but at least covered the scars and tattoos that made her head pound if she looked too long. His breathing evened out slightly. Not better, just less immediately dying. Iris collapsed into the rolling chair, her knee screaming. She'd been on it too long, done too much. The surgery she'd just traded away would have fixed the constant pain, the way it gave out without warning, the grinding sensation that woke her up at night. $1,200. 2 years of saving. Gone in a phone. Call for a stranger who wanted to die. Her hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against her thighs and stared at Samael's face. Unconscious, he looked almost peaceful. Almost human. If you ignored the scarring, the wrongness of his bone structure that was just slightly too perfect, the way shadows clung to him even under fluorescent lights. What the hell did I just do? She whispered to the empty clinic. The cat, her 3-legged tabby named Sergeant who lived in the clinic, jumped onto the counter and hissed at Samael. Full Halloween cat arch, every hair standing on end. Animals knew. They always knew when something was other. Yeah, Sarge, I know. Iris reached over to scratch behind his remaining ear. But he's staying until he's stable. Then he can leave and do whatever he wants. Sergeant yowled once and retreated to his bed in the corner, watching Samael with unblinking yellow eyes. The IV bag was half empty when Samael's eyes opened. Amber first, focusing slowly. Then red, snapping to attention like a weapon being cocked. Both fixed on her with an intensity that made her breath catch. You're still here. His dual voice was clearer now, the 2 tones weaving together more smoothly. Still wrong, still inhuman, but less like he was actively dying. It's my clinic. She rolled the chair closer, ignoring her knee's protest. Where else would I be? Gone. Smart people run from Nephilim. He tried to sit up, failed, fell back with a grunt that sounded like it hurt. Everywhere. How long was I unconscious? 3 hours. You've gone through almost 2 bags of fluids. Whatever fragmentation is, it's dehydrating you at an insane rate. She checked the IV line. Your temperature's still fluctuating, but less violently. Whatever side is winning that war has backed off a little. Nothing's winning. That's the problem. He stared at the ceiling. They're destroying each other. Angel half trying to purify, demon half trying to corrupt. I'm the battleground. Has been for 50 years. Used to be able to control it, keep them balanced. But 300 years is too long. Even Nephilim weren't meant to last this long. The exhaustion in his voice was visceral. Iris felt it bleeding through whatever connection the testimonial mark created. Not thoughts, but the weight of them. The suffocating pressure of existing when existence meant only pain. Why did the others die? She asked quietly. The other first-generation Nephilim. Samael's jaw tensed. Executed, mostly. Celestials and infernals cooperate on exactly one thing, eliminating mistakes. My mother was human, my father was Azazel. Fallen angel, high-ranking, made me valuable. Too valuable to kill immediately. His red eye blazed brighter. They tried to use me first. When that failed, they tried to break me. When that failed, they settled for hunting me. How many others were there? 47. The number came out flat. Factual. Last one died 80 years ago. Suicide. She was younger than me by a century. But fragmentation got her anyway. Jumped into a volcanic fissure in Iceland. Nothing left but ash and the screaming. He paused. I heard her in my head for weeks after. We were all connected, those of us from the first generation. When one died, the rest felt it. Now there's just silence where they used to be. Iris pressed her palm against her sternum, trying to ease the ache that wasn't hers. That's why you're called king. You're not ruling anything. You're just the last one left. Title without kingdom. Crown made of corpses. His laugh was bitter. They made me king because someone had to be. Because the younger Nephilim, second, third generation diluted bloodlines, needed a symbol. I didn't want it. Never wanted any of it. But you don't get to choose what you represent when you're an abomination. Stop calling yourself that. Both his eyes snapped to her. What? Abomination. Mistake. Stop it. Her voice came out sharper than intended. I spent 2 years listening to people call me crazy, unstable, liability. Every report, every psych eval, every discharge paper. Same words over and over until I started believing them. She leaned forward. You're not a mistake. You're a person who's been hurt, hunted and alone for 300 years. There's a difference. Samael stared at her. Something shifted in his expression. Confusion melting into something raw and unguarded. You don't know what I've done. What I've had to do to survive. Then, tell me. Why? The word was almost a plea. Why do you care? Because... Iris stopped, tried to find the right words. Settled on truth because apparently that was all they had. Because 3 hours ago I watched you try to die alone in a parking lot, and something in me recognized it. That level of done. I've been there. After Afghanistan. After the discharge. Gun in my mouth, finger on the trigger, so tired of fighting. Her throat tightened. Someone stopped me. Random vet tech who needed help with a difficult cat. Knocked on my door at exactly the right moment. If he'd come 5 minutes later... She couldn't finish. Didn't need to. Samael's eyes were locked on her face, and she felt his emotions crashing through the mark. recognition, understanding, and something that might have been hope if hope didn't hurt so much. That's why you saved me. It wasn't a question. That's why I saved you. Silence stretched between them, heavy with things neither of them knew how to say. Sergeant meowed from his corner, a plaintive sound that broke the tension. Samael's mouth twitched. Your cat hates me. He hates everyone. You're not special. Iris stood, her knee nearly buckling. She caught herself on the table. I need to change the IV bag. You need to rest. We can talk more when... The lights went out. All of them. Simultaneously. Clinic, parking lot, street lamps visible through the window. Darkness so complete it was suffocating. And in that darkness, Iris heard something that made her blood turn to ice. Wings, not the rustle of birds. Something massive, leathery, cutting through air with the sound of knives on silk. Multiple sets circling the building. No. Samael's voice was sharp with panic. No, not yet. I didn't. They shouldn't have found me this fast. Who? Get down. He ripped the IV out of his arm, fluid spraying. Tried to stand, collapsed, but his hand shot out and grabbed her wrist with crushing strength. Iris, listen to me very carefully. When they break, in, you run. Don't look back. Don't try to help me. Just run, and don't stop until... The front window exploded inward. Glass rained down like crystalline daggers. Something landed in the wreckage. Tall, humanoid, but wrong in every proportion. Too long, too thin, joints bending in directions that defied anatomy. Eyes that glowed pure white in the darkness. And when it smiled, its teeth were silver and sharp. Samael. The thing's voice was beautiful and terrible. The Great Hunt thanks you for making this easy. Behind it, 2 more shapes descended through the broken window. One with wings of burning light that didn't illuminate, only scorched. Another with wings made of shadow and bone. Angel and demon. Standing side by side, looking at Samael like he was prey they'd been tracking for centuries. Last of the first generation, the silver-toothed one said. Your execution has been unanimously approved by Celestial Council and Infernal Court. No trial, no mercy. The mistake ends. Tonight, Samael's grip on Iris's wrist tightened until she felt bones grind. His dual voice came out raw and desperate. She's human, unmarked, has nothing to do with this. Let her go and I won't fight. I'll come quietly. Just let her go. The 3 hunters looked at Iris for the first time. She felt their gazes like physical weight, crushing and absolute. The angel tilted its head. She's touched you. She reeks of testimonial bond. That makes her witness. Contaminated. No loose ends. Theo, Demon added, almost apologetically. You know the rules, Samael. The silver-toothed one, Iris couldn't tell what it was, angel or demon or something else, raised its hand. Claws extended, each one dripping something that sizzled when it hit the floor. We'll make it quick for the human. Professional courtesy. Samael's entire body went rigid, and then something happened that Iris would never forget. Both his eyes blazed, amber and red burning with equal intensity. The scars on his left side erupted with golden light. The tattoos on his right side bled shadow, and behind him, manifesting in the darkness like a nightmare taking form, 2 wings spread wide. One white, radiant, beautiful, but bleeding light like an open wound. One black, writhing, horrifying, but disintegrating at the edges like ash. His dual voice dropped to something that vibrated in Iris's bones. You want her? You go through me. The air in the clinic changed. Iris felt it in her lungs. Pressure building, oxygen. Thinning, like standing at altitude where breathing required conscious effort. The temperature plummeted and spiked simultaneously, her exposed skin breaking out in goosebumps while sweat beaded at her temples. Samael's wings filled the space, and she understood with sudden clarity why humans weren't supposed to see these things. Her brain couldn't process them properly. The white wing existed in too many dimensions, bleeding light that cast shadows in impossible directions. The black wing absorbed reality around it, creating voids where her eyes simply stopped working. The three hunters froze, not from fear, something worse, recognition. He's manifesting both. The angel's voice lost its musical quality, flattening into something mechanical. Simultaneously, that's not possible. Fragmentation should have killed him decades ago. The demon finished, its wings of shadow and bone folded tight against its back. He's burning out. Look at him. They were right. Iris could see it now that her eyes adjusted to the wrongness. Samael was shaking, his entire body rigid with effort. Blood, actual red human blood, mixed with something golden and something black, dripped from his nose. The scars on his left side were cracking, light seeping through like his skin couldn't contain it. The tattoos on his right side were moving, writhing, trying to burrow deeper. "Get behind me," he said to Iris through gritted teeth. His dual voice was fracturing, the two tones splitting. Apart. Now. She moved. Not because she was good at following orders, but because the alternative was standing between him and three things that had just agreed to kill her. Her back hit the wall near Sergeant's corner. The cat was gone. Smart animal. Knew when to abandon ship. The silver-toothed one stepped forward, glass crunching under its feet. Up close, Iris could see it was neither angel nor demon. Something else. Something older. Its skin was translucent, showing clockwork mechanisms. Underneath, gears and wheels turning in rhythm with its breathing. Samael, son of Azazel, last of the first generation. It spoke formally, like reading from a script. "You are charged with the crime of existence. 300 years past your designated termination date. The Great Hunt claims your life by unanimous vote of celestial and infernal courts. Surrender peacefully, and we grant you the mercy of quick dissolution. Resist, and we are authorized to use any force necessary." Authorized. Samael's laugh was unhinged. You always hide behind authorization. Orders from above, below, wherever the hell you things take yours from. His white wing flexed, and the movement sent a wave of pressure through the room that made Iris's ears pop. "What if I'm tired of your authorization? Then you die harder." The demon moved with liquid speed, closing the distance in a blink. Its clawed hand went for Samael's throat. Samael caught it mid-strike. His hand, the right one, covered in writhing. Tattoos gripped the demon's wrist, and where they connected, smoke rose. The demon shrieked, a sound that bypassed Iris's ears and went straight into her skull, making her teeth ache. It tried to pull away. Couldn't. Samael held on with strength that shouldn't exist in someone half dead from fragmentation. "Corruption touch," the angel hissed. "He's using demon half. Reckless. That will accelerate his fragmentation by—" The angel didn't finish, because Samael's white wing swept forward and slammed into it like a battering ram made of light. The angel flew backward, crashed through what remained of the front window, and didn't come back up immediately. Outside, Iris heard it screaming in a language that hurt to hear, syllables that felt like hot needles in her eardrums. The clockwork thing moved, fast. Faster than the demon, faster than Samael could react. It drove something into his stomach, a blade that looked like frozen starlight, silver and burning cold. Samael's dual voice cut. Off mid-scream, both eyes going wide with shock and pain. "Celestial iron," the clockwork thing said calmly. "Neutralizes demon half. You're welcome to try using only angel side, but we both know what that means." Samael looked down at the blade in his stomach. Golden blood, just golden, no black mixed in, poured over the thing's hand. His red eye flickered, dimming. The tattoos on his right side stopped moving, freezing in place. The black wing behind him shuddered and started dissolving faster, No, Iris heard herself say. The word came out small, pathetic. No, stop. The demon Samael still held by the wrist, twisted in his weakening grip, and raked claws across his chest. Deep gouges that cut through the scars, through the tattoos, through everything. Samael's hand finally released, and the demon staggered back, cradling its smoking wrist. 12 seconds, it panted. Contact for 12 seconds and my wrist is third-degree burns. Imagine what he could do with both halves at full. Power. It looked at the clockwork thing. Why was he not terminated as an infant? Who made the call to let him mature? Politics. The clockwork thing twisted the blade. Samael made a sound that wasn't quite human. Celestials wanted to study him. Infernals wanted to recruit him. By the time both sides agreed on elimination, he'd learned to hide. Been cleaning up that mistake ever since. The angel reappeared in the broken window, one wing hanging at a wrong angle. It was bleeding liquid light that burned holes in the floor where it dripped. He's stronger than the reports indicated. Even dying, even fragmenting, he nearly took my wing off. Its white eyes fixed on Samael with something that might have been respect, if angels were capable of that. What a waste. Properly trained, properly utilized, he could have been magnificent. Could have been doesn't matter. The clockwork thing pulled the blade free. Samael collapsed, his legs giving out. He hit the floor hard, both wings flickering in and out of visibility. Only what is matters, and what he is finished. Iris watched him fall, watched golden blood pool under him, mixing with the black ichor still leaking from the earlier claw marks. His amber eye found hers across the room. The red one was completely dark now, lifeless. And through the testimonial mark, she felt what he felt. Not pain. He was past pain. Relief. 300 years of running, fighting, surviving, ending here on a veterinary clinic floor. He'd, wanted to die alone, but at least he wasn't dying at their hands by choice. At least there'd been one person, for a few hours, who'd looked at him and not seen abomination first. At least Iris had tried. Something in her chest cracked. Not the physical sensation the mark created, but something deeper, older. The part of her that had put a gun in her mouth and been saved by random chance. The part that understood what it meant to be so tired of existing that death felt like mercy. She'd saved him. Once. Hours ago. Pulled him back from the edge. These things were pushing him over again, and she was supposed to just watch. The gun was in her locker. The clinic gun, required by city ordinance because she worked nights in a bad neighborhood. Loaded. Safety off because she'd never been good at remembering to flick it when adrenaline hit. She'd put it there this morning after the golden retriever appointment. Her body moved before her brain caught up. 3 steps to the locker. Key already in. Her hand because she'd been about to lock up when she found Samael. Locker open, gun in hand, safety already off. She'd qualified expert marksman in the army. Muscle memory didn't forget. The clockwork thing was raising its blade again, positioning it over Samael's heart. The angel and demon were moving in from the sides, coordinating without speaking. Professional. Efficient. About to end the last first-generation Nephilim in existence. Iris fired. The bullet hit the clockwork thing in the shoulder. Not where she'd aimed. She'd been going for center mass. But her knee had chosen that moment to give out, throwing off her stance. The thing staggered anyway, blade clattering to the floor. It looked at her with those empty eyes, gears visible under translucent skin grinding to a halt. The human has a weapon, it said, like announcing weather. Probability of significant injury is negligible, but protocol requires... She fired again, and again, and again, emptying the magazine. 15 rounds. She'd counted them when she loaded it months ago. 15 rounds at 3 things that probably couldn't be killed by bullets, but could at least be slowed down, distracted, given 1 second of hesitation. Samael used that second. His hand, his left hand, the one covered in scars, slammed palm down on the floor. The white wing that had been flickering solidified, expanded, and exploded outward in a nova of light that sent all 3 hunters flying. The angel crashed into the drug cabinet. The demon hit the wall hard enough to crack drywall. The clockwork thing simply disintegrated, gears and wheels scattering across the floor, ticking and whirring independently. The light faded. Samael was on his hands and knees, gasping. Both wings were gone. Both eyes were open but barely focused. The wound in his stomach was still bleeding, golden blood mixing with regular blood mixing with black ichor. He looked at Iris, at the empty gun in her shaking hands, at her face. "You shot them," he said, dual voice barely audible. "Why would you?" "Because nobody should die alone," she said. Her voice was steady despite everything, despite the 3 hunters starting to recover, despite the gun being empty, despite knowing what she'd just done. Not even kings. The angel pulled itself from the drug cabinet ruins. Its hanging wing straightened with a sound like bones breaking and reforming. The human has interfered with authorized execution. She's now classified as hostile entity. Harboring fugitive Nephilim, assault on hunt agents, both capital offenses under covenant law. "Oh, good." Iris dropped the empty gun. It clattered on the floor between her and Samael. "I was worried I'd only ruin my life a little bit." Samael laughed. Actually laughed. It came out wet and pained, but genuine. "You absolute idiot," he said, and it sounded like a prayer. "You beautiful, suicidal idiot." The demon was standing now, shaking its head like clearing cobwebs. "New parameters. Kill the Nephilim, kill the human, burn the building, report completion. No witnesses. No evidence." The 3 hunters converged, and Samael's hand found Iris's across the blood-soaked floor. The moment their skin touched, the testimonial mark ignited. The world inverted. That was the only way Iris could describe it later, when her brain stopped screaming and started trying to process what happened. 1 second she was touching Samael's hand on the blood-soaked clinic floor, 3 hunters converging to kill them both. The next second, reality folded inside out, and she was somewhere else entirely. Not physically. She was still in the clinic. She could see it around her, smell the copper tang of blood, and the ozone stink of celestial iron. But she was also inside Samael's head, inside his memories, inside 300 years of existence compressed into the space between heartbeats. She saw him born, felt his mother's hands cradling him, human woman with tears streaming down her face because she knew what he was, what he'd become, felt his father's presence, Azazel, fallen angel, standing in the doorway of a cabin that didn't exist anymore. Heard the words, "He'll suffer, they all do, but he's ours." 47 others. First-generation Nephilim, children of fallen angels and humans, scattered across the world. She felt them like stars in a constellation only Samael could see. Felt each one wink out over centuries. Executed in Jerusalem, burned in Prague, drowned in the Pacific, starved. In a cell beneath Vatican City. Suicide in Iceland, jumping into volcanic fire, and the screaming that echoed through the connection between them all. She felt Samael's first kill. A human who'd discovered what he was, threatened to expose him. 19 years old and hands shaking, demon half whispering that it was necessary, angel half screaming that it was murder. The compromise he'd made. Quick death, painless, no suffering. The part of him that died anyway. She felt his coronation. Not ceremony or celebration. Just waking up one morning and realizing he was the last first generation. And 300 younger Nephilim with diluted bloodlines were looking to him for leadership he didn't want, protection he couldn't give. The weight of a title that meant nothing except survivor's guilt crystallized into responsibility. She felt fragmentation beginning. 50 years ago. The first crack. Angel half trying to purify his blood, burn away the demon. Demon half trying to corrupt. Deeper, drown the angel. Both halves convinced they were saving him. Both halves killing him instead. The years of learning to balance them, keeping them at war with each other so neither could win. The exhaustion of being your own battleground. She felt every hunt. Celestials wanting him dead because he was corruption incarnate. Infernals wanting him dead because he'd refused recruitment, refused to be weapon. Younger Nephilim wanting him dead because his existence drew attention to all of them. Humans wanting him dead because monsters should die. 3 centuries of running, hiding, fighting, never belonging anywhere, never safe. And then she felt tonight, the decision to stop, to find somewhere quiet and let fragmentation finish what it started. The parking lot behind a veterinary clinic seemed as good as anywhere, better than most. At least animals didn't judge. She felt his shock when she touched him. When she didn't run. When she used money she couldn't afford to lose. Buying. Him time he didn't want. She felt the moment he realized he wanted to live after all. Not because life was good. Life had been 300 years of hell. But because for the first time in longer than he could remember, someone had looked at him and seen person first, monster second. She felt his rage when the hunters came for her. Pure, incandescent fury that she was being punished for the crime of compassion. That they'd kill her for saving him when he was supposed to die anyway. And she felt his love. Brand new, hours old, impossible and inevitable. Love born from being seen, from being touched without flinching, from someone shooting at angels and demons with an empty gun because nobody should die alone. The memories released her. Iris gasped, back in her body, back in real time. But something had changed. The testimonial mark wasn't just passive connection anymore. It was active, alive, burning in her chest like a second heart, and she could feel Samael on the other end of it. Not his thoughts, but his presence, his emotions, his pain radiating through the bond. The 3 hunters had frozen mid-step, staring at them, at their joined hands, at the light bleeding through Iris's shirt where the mark was manifesting visibly. Impossible, the angel whispered. Testimonial marks don't bond. They witness. They don't connect. It's evolving. The demon's voice held something that might have been fear. Active testimonial bond. Last recorded case was 600 years ago. Ended. With both parties executed because the connection couldn't be severed. Samael's hand tightened on Iris's. His dual voice came out raw. Don't touch her. You want me? Fine. I'll go quietly. But she's innocent. She stopped being innocent when she pulled that trigger. The angel cut him off. Active testimonial bond means she's entangled now. Supernaturally contaminated beyond redemption. Standard protocol for contaminated humans is immediate termination before... Iris felt it through the bond. Before she saw it. Samael's fury crystallizing into decision. His demon, half and angel half, at war for 50 years, suddenly finding one point of agreement. Protect her. Both his eyes blazed, amber and red burning with equal intensity for the first time since fragmentation began. The scars on his left side erupted with golden light. The tattoos on his right side bled shadow so thick it had substance. And when he spoke, his dual voice synchronized perfectly. Angel and demon in harmony. You want to kill her? You'll have to kill me first. And I mean actually kill me. Not capture, not torture, not imprison. Death. Final. Complete. He pulled himself up to his knees, dragging Iris with him, keeping their hands joined. Because if I'm still breathing and you touch her, I will spend whatever time I have left hunting every single one of you. Your superiors. Your families if you have them. Everyone you've ever protected. I'll become exactly the monster you always said I was. The threat hung. In the air. Through the bond, Iris felt the truth of it. He meant every word. Would burn himself out completely. accelerate fragmentation to fatal levels, just to make them pay for hurting her. The clockwork thing, its parts were reassembling on the floor, gears pulling back together like magnetized, spoke in its emotionless tone. Threat assessment, credible. Subject has nothing to lose and demonstrated capacity for extreme violence when motivated. Recommendation, withdraw and request specialized. Containment team, we're authorized to complete this execution, the demon argued. Authorization doesn't include acceptable casualty rates above 40%, the clockwork thing countered. Subject in current state could inflict significant damage before termination. Tactical retreat is optimal solution. The angel's wings folded. It looked at Samael with those burning white eyes, and Iris felt its hatred through the bond. Not personal hatred, but the deep ideological loathing of something that existed in violation of cosmic order. This isn't over, it said quietly. Retreat today doesn't mean reprieve. The Great Hunt has infinite patience. We'll return with appropriate force to neutralize both of you. Separately or together, doesn't matter. You're both dead. Just a question of when. Looking forward to it, Samael said through gritted teeth. The synchronized dual voice was costing him. Iris could feel it through the bond, the way forcing his two halves into cooperation was, tearing him apart from inside. The three hunters withdrew, not fleeing. They moved with coordinated precision, the angel and demon lifting into the air, the clockwork thing disassembling into component parts that scattered and vanished. Within seconds, the clinic was empty, except for Iris, Samael, and the devastation. The moment they were gone, Samael collapsed. Completely. Both eyes rolling back, dual voice cutting off, hand going limp in Iris's grip. The wounds, stomach, chest, everywhere, were bleeding freely now, golden and red and black mixing together. His breathing was so shallow she had to press her ear to his chest to confirm he was still alive. Through the bond, she felt him slipping. Not dying. Worse. Fragmenting. The forced cooperation between his halves had been last resort, and now they were tearing him apart with renewed violence. Angel side screaming that it had touched demon corruption too intimately. Demon side raging that it had submitted to angel authority. The war, inside him escalating to civil war, and he was the casualty. No. Iris's voice came out steady despite the terror flooding through the bond. No, you don't get to die now. Not after that speech. Not after threatening to become monster for me. She pressed both hands over the stomach wound, trying to staunch bleeding that shouldn't be physically possible. Samael, stay with me. Come on. His amber eye cracked open. Just barely. The red one stayed dark. Iris. Her name on his lips sounded like, goodbye. I'm sorry. Bond shouldn't have formed. Now you're contaminated. Entangled. Dead woman walking. I know. She grabbed his face, making him focus on her. I don't care. You hear me? I don't care. I knew what I was doing when I pulled that trigger. You didn't know about the bond. Didn't need to. She felt tears burning her eyes, didn't fight them. You said it yourself. Nobody should die alone. That includes you. That includes me. So if we're both dead anyway, we're going to be dead together? And that means you need to stop bleeding out on my clinic floor right now. He laughed. Wet, pained, but genuine. Bossy. Military training. You want to file a complaint? Little busy dying. Then stop talking and start not dying. She looked around the destroyed clinic, at the scattered supplies, at the IV bag still half full on the crashed equipment cart. I didn't spend my surgery money just to watch you die 6 hours later. I want return on investment. Return. He coughed, black ichor spattering his lips. You're insane. Yeah. She grabbed the IV bag, yanked it free from the broken cart. I got discharged for that, remember? Now hold still. She worked on instinct and training, mind shutting off the part that wanted to panic and focusing on triage. Clean the wounds as much as possible. Impossible. 3 different types of blood, and she didn't know what cleaned celestial iron contamination. Pack them with gauze from the supply cabinet that had somehow survived. Restart the IV in his other arm because the first one had torn free. Thermal blanket that did nothing but at least covered the worst of it. Through the bond, she felt him watching her. Felt his confusion and wonder, and the soul-deep exhaustion of someone who'd stopped expecting anyone to fight for him. Why? He asked quietly. Dual voice, barely a whisper, but both tones present. You could have run. Should have run. Why stay? Iris looked at him. Really looked. At the face that was too perfect and too wrong, at the eyes that burned with inhuman light, at the body that was literally destroying itself from the inside. She thought about the memories she'd seen. 300 years alone. 47 others dead. A title he never wanted, and a life he'd tried to end. She thought about her own memories. The gun in her mouth. The random knock on the door. The choice to keep living not because life was good, but because someone had needed her at exactly the right moment. Because 5 minutes ago, you threatened to become a monster to protect me. Her voice cracked. Nobody's ever done that before. Nobody's ever... She couldn't finish. The words stuck in her throat, tangled with emotions she didn't have names for. Samael's scarred hand lifted, trembling with effort. His fingers brushed her cheek, and where he touched, the testimonial mark pulsed. Through it, she felt what he couldn't say. Thank you. I'm sorry. Please don't leave. I don't want to die anymore. I'm terrified. I think I love you. How is that possible after 6 hours? Why does the bond feel like coming home? What did you do to me? What did I do to you? Yeah, she whispered, covering his hand with hers. Me too. Dawn came through the shattered window in shades of pink and gold that felt obscene given the destruction. Iris had spent the night watching Samael breathe, counting each inhale to make sure there was an exhale following. The IV bag had run dry an hour ago. She'd replaced it with the last one from Marcus's duffel, knowing it wouldn't be enough, knowing she'd need to figure out something else soon or watch him die anyway. The bond made it worse. She felt every spike of pain when fragmentation flared. Felt his fever dreams, memories of faces she didn't recognize, places that didn't exist anymore. The sensation of wings that were and weren't part of his body. Felt the war inside him, angel and demon tearing at each other with renewed viciousness after their forced cooperation. Her phone had been ringing for the past 3 hours. She'd ignored it. 17 missed calls from the clinic owner, 9 from worried clients, 5 from her landlord about rent that was now definitely not getting paid. 1 voicemail from Marcus that just said, "Whatever you're into, I don't want to know, but call me if you need a shovel." She almost laughed at that. A shovel wouldn't help. You couldn't bury what was happening here. Samael stirred around 6 a.m., both eyes opening slowly. Ready? One was slightly brighter than last night. Not much, but enough to notice. Through the bond, Iris felt his confusion, then recognition, then the crushing weight of reality settling back onto him. You're still here, he said. Dual voice rough, uneven. I thought maybe I dreamed you. Not a dream. Just really bad life choices. She checked his pulse. Still erratic, but stronger than midnight. How do you feel? Like I got stabbed with celestial iron, clawed by a demon, and used both halves of my power simultaneously for the first time in 50 years. He tried to sit up, failed, settled for turning his head to look at her properly. So, about the same as Tuesday. You have a sense of humor. That's new. Dying gives you perspective. His amber eye studied her face. You look terrible. Thanks. You look like you got hit by a truck driven by an angel and a demon taking turns at the wheel. Accurate. He was quiet for a moment. Then, the bond. You saw my memories. It wasn't a question, but she answered anyway. Yeah. All of them? Enough. She pulled the rolling chair closer, her knee protesting every movement. 300 years, 47 others, your father, the first kill, Iceland. She paused. The coronation that wasn't really a coronation. Samael closed his eyes. Through the bond, she felt shame bleeding through. Not for what he'd done, but for her having witnessed it. For her knowing exactly what he was, what he'd been forced to become. And you're, still here, he said quietly. Where else would I be? Anywhere. Running. Smart people run from Nephilim. You said that back in the parking lot. I also said I was tired of being afraid of everything. Iris leaned forward, elbows on her knees. You want me to leave? Say it. Use that truth-telling we're apparently stuck with. Tell me to go. He opened his eyes. Both of them locked on her face. Amber and red burning with intensity that made her breath catch. Through the bond, she felt him trying to form the words, trying to tell her to run for her own safety. Felt him fail. I can't, he admitted, dual voice breaking. I should. You'd be safer. But I can't make myself say it because the thought of you leaving is... He stopped, started again. 300 years, Iris. 300 years alone. And 6 hours with you felt more like living than the last century. Something in her chest cracked open. Not the bond. Something else. Something human and vulnerable that she'd locked away after. Afghanistan, after the discharge, after putting a gun in her mouth. The memories went both ways, she said. Didn't they? When the bond formed. You saw mine too. Samael nodded slowly. The cave in Afghanistan. The thing you saw. Demon incursion, probably. The discharge. The diagnosis. The gun. His voice dropped to barely audible. The vet tech who knocked on your door. Marcus, she supplied, needed help with a Maine Coon that was sedated but still fighting. Took 3 hours to safely trim. Its claws. By the time we finished, the moment had passed. The gun went back in the safe. I never took it out again. Until last night. Until last night, she agreed. When I shot at things that can't be killed by bullets to buy you 3 seconds. Stupidest thing I've ever seen. You've lived 300 years. That's saying something. He laughed. Actually laughed, and the sound was lighter than anything she'd felt through the bond. For just a second, the war inside him quieted. Angel and demon both paused their battle to exist in that moment of genuine joy. Then his expression shifted. Serious. Weighted with something heavy. Iris. The bond. What the hunters said about active testimonial marks. About both parties being executed. I heard. They weren't exaggerating. Historical record is sparse, but every documented case of active testimonial bonding ended the same way. Both people killed within weeks, sometimes days. His hand found hers across the medical supplies, scattered on the table. I've condemned you. By touching you, by forming this connection, I've signed your death warrant. Pretty sure I signed my own death warrant when I emptied a gun at the Great Hunt. This is different. The bond can't be broken. Not by distance, not by time. We're connected now, permanently. You feel what I feel. See what I see. When I die, his voice cracked. When I die, you might die with me. The bond might drag you down too. Through their joined hands, Iris felt the ow, guilt crushing him. Felt his self-loathing crystallizing around the knowledge that he'd hurt her by existing, by allowing her to save him, by being too selfish to push her away when he should have. She squeezed his hand. Hard. Stop. Stop what? Blaming yourself for my choices. Her voice came out sharper than intended. I pulled the trigger. I stayed. I touched you when the mark activated. Those were my decisions. Mine. You don't get to take responsibility for them just because you're used. To carrying everything alone. You don't understand. I understand that you've spent 300 years thinking you're a burden. A mistake. Something that should have died before it had a chance to hurt people. She leaned closer. I also understand that's bullshit. You didn't ask to be born Nephilim. Didn't ask for fragmentation. Didn't ask for the Great Hunt, or the executions or any of it. You've survived. That's not a crime. That's not something to apologize for. Samael stared at her. Through the bond, she felt his emotions in chaotic waves: disbelief, hope, fear, and something that might have been the beginning of acceptance. "How are you real?" he whispered. "I ask myself that every day." She smiled despite everything. Usually right before something else goes catastrophically wrong. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, "They'll come back. The Great Hunt, with reinforcements, better weapons, specialized containment teams designed specifically for first-generation Nephilim." His dual voice was steady now, matter of fact. "We have maybe 48 hours before they regroup and return. 72 if we're lucky and bureaucracy slows them down. So what do we do?" "We?" He looked at her like she'd grown a second head. "Iris, there is no we. You need to disappear. Change your name. Leave the country. Find somewhere remote where supernatural entities don't have strong presence. I can give you names, places that might be safe. And what about you?" He stopped. Through the bond, she felt him trying to construct a lie. Felt the words disintegrating before he could speak them. The testimonial mark wouldn't allow deception between them. "I'll fight until I can't anymore. Buy you time to run. Then I'll die. Probably badly. Definitely alone. But you'll be safe." "No. No. No." Iris stood up, ignoring her knee's shriek of protest. "We established this last night. Nobody dies alone. That includes you. That especially includes you after you threatened to become a monster to protect me." She started pacing, mind working through scenarios the way she used to plan combat operations. "We need information. You said there are younger Nephilim, second and third generation. Where are they?" "Scattered. Hiding. Most want nothing to do with me because I draw attention. But some might help." Samael hesitated. "Maybe. There's a community in Seattle. Small, carefully hidden, led by a second generation named Ariadne. We have history. Not romantic," he added quickly. "She's one of the few who doesn't blame me for existing. Can we reach her in 48 hours? It's a 16-hour drive, if I could drive. Which I can't because I'm currently bleeding 3 different colors and experiencing fragmentation episodes every 20 minutes. He watched her pace. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking we have a destroyed clinic. A very confused cat somewhere in the wreckage. Approximately -$1,200 in my bank account. And 2 days before angelic and demonic hit squads return to kill us both." She stopped pacing, turned to face him. "I'm thinking we can either wait here to die, or we can go find the one person you know who might help. I'm thinking I've got nothing left to lose except you, and I just met you. And that should be crazy, but somehow it's not." Through the bond, she felt his shock, his wonder, the tiny spark of hope that maybe, just maybe, he didn't have to face this alone. "You're insane," he said. "Yeah." She held out her hand. "You mentioned that. You coming or not?" Samael looked at her hand, at her face, at the determination in her eyes that reminded him of warriors he'd known centuries ago, the ones who chose their deaths instead of accepting them. He took her hand. The bond flared, burning bright in both their chests. Through it, Iris felt his decision crystallizing, not just to go to Seattle, to fight, to live, to see where this impossible connection led, even if it led to both their deaths. "Seattle," he said. 16 hours. In a vehicle I assume doesn't exist yet. My Jeep's in the parking lot, assuming the hunters didn't destroy it. And I'm supposed to travel like this? He gestured at himself. Blood-soaked, wounded, barely able to stand. "I'll bleed out before we hit the interstate. Then I guess you better not bleed out." She pulled him upright with strength that surprised them both. "Come on, King. Time to see if 300 years taught you anything. Useful about not dying in passenger seats. The Jeep smelled like old coffee, cat hair, and now blood. 3 kinds of blood, because apparently Iris's life had become the kind where that was a relevant distinction. Samael was in the passenger seat, wrapped in every blanket she'd pulled from the clinic's storage closet, looking like Death's particularly exhausted cousin. They'd made it 8 miles before she had to pull over the first time, watching him convulse through a fragmentation episode that left the dashboard covered in frost and scorch marks simultaneously. Mile marker 43 was when things got complicated. "Pull over," Samael said through gritted teeth. His dual voice was fracturing again, the 2 tones pulling apart like arguing children. "Now. Pull over now." Iris swerved onto the shoulder hard enough to make the Jeep fishtail. Samael's door was open before they'd fully stopped, and he fell out onto the gravel, retching. What came up wasn't vomit. It was light and shadow, golden radiance and black void pouring out of him in equal measure, burning holes in the ground where they landed. She was beside him in seconds, hand on his back, feeling the war inside him through the bond. It was worse than before. The forced cooperation during the fight had broken something fundamental in the balance he'd maintained for 50 years. Now his angel half and demon half weren't just fighting, they were trying to completely annihilate each other. And he was the battlefield, being scorched to ash. He couldn't finish the sentence. Both eyes were blazing, amber and red at maximum intensity, and she could see the whites of his eyes bleeding color. Gold in one, black in the other. Can't hold both. Don't talk, just breathe. She pulled him against her, wrapping her arms around him despite the temperature extremes burning and freezing her skin simultaneously. Through the bond, she pushed everything she had at him. Not thoughts. She didn't know how to do that. Just presence. The knowledge that he wasn't alone. That someone was holding him while he came apart. It helped. Barely. The convulsions slowed. The light and shadow stopped pouring out of him, reducing to occasional sparks and wisps. His breathing evened into something less catastrophic. "Sorry," he gasped when he could speak again. "Should have warned you. Episodes are getting worse, more frequent." Using both powers simultaneously accelerated the fragmentation timeline. Instead of months, I probably have weeks, maybe days. Then we better drive fast. She helped him back into the Jeep, noting that his weight was wrong, lighter than it should be, as if parts of him were becoming insubstantial. "How far to Seattle?" "From here, 14 hours if you drive straight through." He leaned his head back against the seat, both eyes closed. "I won't make it 14 hours. "Yes, you will." "Iris, no." She started the engine, pulling back onto the highway with probably illegal speed. "You don't get to give up now. Not after I spent my surgery money, shot at angels, and became supernatural fugitive. You owe me at least making it to Seattle." Through the bond, she felt his smile. Weak, but genuine. Guilt trip. Didn't expect that. "I'm full of surprises." They drove in silence for the next hour. Iris kept the speedometer at exactly 7 miles over the limit. Fast enough to make time, slow enough to avoid cop attention. The last thing they needed was explaining Samael to highway. "Patrol." She could see the conversation now. "Yes, officer, the passenger is bleeding 3 colors because he's half angel, half demon, and dying of supernatural cancer. No, we don't have insurance." Mile marker 91 was when the bond did something new. Iris felt it like a switch flipping in her chest. Suddenly she wasn't just feeling Samael's emotions. She was seeing through his eyes. Literally. Her vision doubled, showing her both the highway through the windshield and Samael's view of her. Profile as she drove. The disorientation nearly made her swerve into the next lane. "What?" She blinked hard, trying to separate the dual vision. "Samael, I can see." "Me too." His dual voice was strained. "Your vision, overlapping with mine, the bonds evolving, deeper integration." Through their shared sight, she felt his fear. This happened in the historical cases, right before the end. When bonds evolved to complete synchronization, both parties died within hours, couldn't maintain separate consciousness. Well, that's just fantastic. Iris forced herself to focus on her own vision, pushing his to the periphery. It helped slightly. Any way to stop it? If there was, it would be in the records. He was struggling too. She could feel it, trying to maintain his own sense of self while their perceptions merged. Testimonial marks aren't supposed to bond this deeply. Something about us is different. Wrong. Making it worse. Or maybe something about us is right, she said quietly. Maybe that's why it's bonding so completely. He turned to look at her, both physically and through the bond, giving her quadruple vision that made her head pound. What are you talking about? The mark formed when you confessed truth and I demanded it. Your whole existence, 300 years of it, in the space between heartbeats. She kept her eyes on the road, even though she could see herself through his eyes doing it. I saw everything you were, everything you'd done, all the darkness, and violence and survival. And I didn't run. That's gotta be rare, right? Most people would have run. Most people have sense. Most people didn't have a gun in their mouth 2 years ago. She glanced at him, saw herself glancing at him through his eyes, and the recursion made her dizzy. Maybe the bond is evolving because we're both broken in compatible ways. Maybe it recognizes something. Through the bond, she felt his response before he spoke it. Wonder and terror mixed equally. The realization that she might be right, that this connection between them might be something unprecedented. Not just testimonial bond, but something deeper. Recognition on a soul level. If you're right, he said slowly, if this is compatibility rather than malfunction, then we're in uncharted territory. No historical precedent means no idea what happens next. Guess we'll find out together. Mile marker 137 was when they found the first body. Iris almost didn't stop. It was just a shape on the shoulder, could have been deer. Happens all the time on highways. But Samael made a sound, sharp and pained, and through the bond she felt his recognition. Stop the car. She did. Pulled over onto the shoulder 30 feet from the shape. Up close, it was clear this wasn't a deer. It was Nephilim. Young one, maybe third generation, judging by the subtle wrongness of proportions rather than Samael's obvious duality. Male, early 20s in appearance. Dead for hours, but the body wasn't decomposing normally. It was crystallizing, turning to something like amber mixed with obsidian. Marcus, Samael whispered. Not the Marcus Iris knew. Different Marcus. Third generation. Good kid. Stayed out of politics. Just wanted to live quietly. He knelt beside the body, despite the pain it caused. Placed one hand on the crystallized chest. Executed. Standard Great Hunt methodology. Quick, efficient, no witnesses. They're killing all Nephilim? Iris felt cold that had nothing to do with temperature. Looks like. Samael stood slowly, every movement costing him. Must have decided I'm too dangerous to leave loose ends. Any Nephilim who might help me might harbor me. They're eliminating them preemptively. Through the bond, Iris felt his guilt. Crushing, absolute. This kid was dead because he existed in proximity to Samael. Because he was the same species as the last first generation. Because the Great Hunt had decided scorched earth was preferable to letting Samael find allies. This is my fault, Samael said. This is their fault, Iris corrected sharply. They pulled the trigger, not you. They chose genocide, not you. I should have died in that parking lot. Should have let fragmentation finish me. Then none of this. Then you'd be dead, and this Marcus would probably still be dead because the Great Hunt doesn't need excuses to kill your kind. She grabbed his shoulder, made him look at her. Stop taking responsibility for other people's evil. You didn't make them monsters. They chose that themselves. He stared at her. Through the bond, through the doubled vision, through every layer of connection between them, She felt him trying to believe her, felt him failing. "How many more?" he asked quietly. "How many more dead because of me?" "I don't know. But standing here feeling guilty won't help them." She pulled him back toward the Jeep. "You said there's a community in Seattle. How many?" "Last I knew, maybe 20. Second and third. Generation, few fourth. Not many. Then we need to get there before the hunt does. Warn them if nothing else." They drove faster after that. Iris pushed the Jeep to 80, then 85, then 90 on the empty stretches. Samael sat silent in the passenger seat, both eyes open but unseeing, lost in guilt and memories that bled through the bond. She felt them all, every Nephilim he'd known who'd died over 3 centuries. Every face, every name, every unique death. 47 first. Generation, hundreds of younger ones, all gone, all ending in violence. And now 20 more marked for execution because he'd dared to survive. Mile marker 248 was when they hit the roadblock. It wasn't obvious at first, just orange cones narrowing the highway to single lane, construction signs warning of delays ahead. Normal enough. Except Samael sat up straight, both eyes blazing, and through the bond Iris felt his recognition. "It's a trap," he said. Dual voice sharp with certainty. "No construction. That's a hunting formation. Old school, dates back to medieval times. Funnel traffic, isolate target, execute." "How do you know?" "Because I've used it." His hand gripped the door handle. "Iris, turn around. Now. Before we get close enough for them to block retreat." She looked in the rearview mirror. 2 vehicles had appeared behind them. Black SUVs with tinted windows, keeping pace exactly. Not closing distance, but not falling back either. "Too late," she said. "We're boxed in." Then ram through the cones, off-road, anything. In a Jeep held together with duct tape and prayers? She kept driving forward, mind racing. They'd catch us in minutes. Better than whatever they have waiting at that roadblock. Through the bond, she felt his fear. Not for himself, for her, for what they'd do to her. Contaminated human with active testimonial bond, there was no protocol for that except execution, and it wouldn't be quick. The roadblock came into view. 3. Vehicles parked across both lanes. 6 figures standing in formation. 2 angels with wings spread, 2 demons with shadow pooling around their feet. 2 humans in tactical gear holding weapons that glowed with celestial iron. And standing in the center, coordinating them all, was the clockwork thing from the clinic. Fully reassembled, gears visible under translucent skin, turning with mechanical precision. It raised one hand as they approached, the universal signal for stop. Iris didn't slow. "Down. What are you doing?" Samael's dual voice went up an octave. "Something stupid." She pressed the accelerator down. 75, 80, 85. The Jeep's engine screamed protest. "Hold on to something." "Iris, I said hold on." The roadblock loomed. 50 feet, 40, 30. The 6 hunters raising weapons, preparing to fire. 20 feet. And Samael's hand shot out and grabbed the steering wheel. The Jeep swerved hard left, Samael's hand wrenching the wheel with strength that shouldn't exist in someone half dead. They went off-road at 80 miles per hour, hitting the embankment at an angle that sent them airborne for 3 seconds that felt like 3 years. Iris's stomach dropped, hands locked on the wheel fighting Samael's grip, and then they crashed back to earth in a spray of dirt and rocks that shattered the passenger side mirror. "What the hell are you doing?" she screamed over the engine's roar. "Saving your life." His dual voice was ragged. "You were about to ram 6 trained killers in a vehicle made of tinfoil and hope. I had a plan. Suicide isn't a plan." The Jeep fishtailed through scrub brush, bouncing over terrain that was absolutely not meant for vehicles. Behind them, Iris heard the hunters mobilizing. Engines starting, wings beating air, the mechanical whir of the clockwork thing disassembling to pursue. They had seconds at most. Through the bond, she felt Samael's calculation. The same tactical mind that had survived 300 years of being hunted, running probability trees faster than she could follow. Their chances of outrunning the hunt in the Jeep, 3%. Their chances if they abandoned the vehicle and ran on foot, 0%. Their chances if Samael did something catastrophically stupid, 12%. Don't, she said, feeling his decision forming before he voiced it. I have to. Samael, no. He was already opening the door. At 40 miles per hour over rough terrain, opening the door was insanity. Jumping out was suicide. But he grabbed her face with both hands, pulled her into a kiss that was desperate and fierce, and tasted like 3 different kinds of blood. And through the bond, she felt everything he couldn't say. I love you. I'm sorry. Live. Please live. Remember me as something other than monster. This is the only way. I'm not sorry I met you. 300 years of nothing and 6 hours of you made it worth it. Please forgive me. Please forget me. Please live. Then he was gone, rolling out of the Jeep, and through the bond, Iris felt him hit the ground hard enough to shatter ribs that were already broken. She slammed on the brakes, throwing the Jeep into a spin that nearly flipped it. By the time she'd stopped and kicked her own door open, Samael was standing in the middle of the empty highway, facing the 6 hunters who'd redirected from the roadblock. His legs were shaking. Blood, all 3 colors, poured from reopened wounds. Both wings manifested behind him, white and black, bleeding and disintegrating, barely holding form. But his dual voice came out strong when he spoke. Last first-generation Nephilim, son of Azazel, surrendering to Great Hunt authority, on condition that human female Iris Chen is released from all charges, all surveillance, all consequences of her association with me. She acted under duress, coerced by testimonial bond she didn't understand. She's innocent. No! Iris was running before conscious thought caught up, her bad knee screaming with every step. No, you don't get to do this! The clockwork thing tilted its head, gears grinding in consideration. Conditional surrender. Interesting. Terms? I come quietly. No resistance. Full cooperation with containment and termination protocols. Samael's amber eye found Iris across the distance. Through the bond, she felt him begging her to understand, to accept, to live. In exchange, Iris Chen walks away, free, unmarked. No record of her involvement. You wipe her from your files and leave her alone. Samael, stop. Iris was 10 feet away when 2 of the human hunters moved to intercept her. She tried to push past them, couldn't, ended up restrained with arms locked behind her back. Don't do this. Please don't do this. Through the bond, his emotions crashed into her. Love and desperation, and the absolute certainty that this was the only way to save her. If he surrendered, they might honor the terms. If he fought, they'd kill them both. Simple mathematics. 300 years of survival instinct, all pointing to the same conclusion. Die so she could live. Terms are acceptable, the clockwork thing said, provided testimonial bond is severed first. Can't have loose ends maintaining connection to terminated asset. Samael's entire body went rigid. Sever the bond? That will kill her. Not necessarily. 50-50 survival rate for the human in active testimonial severance. Better odds than she has if Hunt is forced to terminate both of you. The Ibe. Clockwork thing's empty eyes fixed on Iris. She might survive. She might not. But it's the only way to guarantee her freedom if she lives. No, Iris said. The word came out flat. Absolute. No, you're not severing anything. Iris... Samael's dual voice cracked. I said no. She stopped fighting the hunters holding her. Went completely still. You want to kill me? Fine. Kill me. But I'm not letting you take him alone. I'm not letting him die thinking he saved me by destroying himself. And I'm not severing a bond that's the only real thing I've felt in 2 years. Through the bond, She felt Samael's anguish, felt him trying to find words, trying to make her understand. But the testimonial mark worked both ways, and she pushed back everything she had. Her own certainty, her own choice, the knowledge that she'd rather die with him than live without him after only knowing him for 12 hours, and how insane that was, and how true it was anyway. Together, she said, or not at all. One of the angels stepped forward. Touching sentiment? Irrelevant. Samael, you have 10 seconds to agree to severance or we terminate both of you now. No conditions. No mercy. Choose. Samael looked at her. Both eyes, amber and red, locked on her face across 30 feet of empty highway. Through the bond, through the doubled vision, through every layer of connection between them, she felt him weighing 300 years of survival against 12 hours of being seen. His wings folded, his shoulders dropped, and his dual voice came out broken. I can't let you die for me. Then don't. Iris stopped fighting entirely, went limp in the hunter's grip. Let me die with you. That's different. How is that different? Because for Means, I had no choice. With Means, I chose you. Her throat was tight. I chose you over surgery, over safety, over survival. Don't take that choice away from me now. The clockwork thing made a sound like gears grinding in frustration. This is taking too long. New terms. Both of you die. Here, now, because apparently neither of you has sense. It raised one hand, and the other 5 hunters raised weapons. Final offer. Surrender separately or die together. 5 seconds. Through the bond, Iris felt Samael's mind racing. Felt him running scenarios, probabilities, outcomes. Felt the moment he found something. Not escape, not survival, but a third option that hadn't existed until the bond showed it to him. His dual voice synchronized perfectly. Angel and demon in complete harmony for the second time in 50 years. There is a third option, he said quietly. One that's never been attempted because no one was desperate or stupid enough to try it. What option? The clockwork thing demanded. Complete integration. Samael's eyes blazed, both colors burning at maximum intensity. Active testimonial bond at this depth means we're already sharing perception, emotion, experience. One more step, and we could share existence. Merge consciousness. Become one entity instead of two. The hunters went silent. Even the clockwork thing's gears stopped turning for a moment. That's theoretical, one of the demons finally said. No recorded successful cases. Most attempts resulted in both parties dying immediately or worse, fractured into something that wasn't quite alive, wasn't quite dead, trapped between states. I know. Through the bond, Iris felt Samael's terror at the suggestion he was making. But if it works, you can't kill us. Separately because we won't be separate anymore. One entity, one target, harder to eliminate, buys us time. Or kills you both in the next 30 seconds and saves us the ammunition, the angel pointed out. Maybe. Samael's attention shifted to Iris. But maybe not. And maybe is better than definitely dead. Through the bond, she felt his question. Felt him asking permission for something that would change them both fundamentally and irreversibly. Iris, do you trust me? She should say no. Should recognize this as insanity, desperation, last resort of someone with no good options. Should understand that merging consciousness with someone she'd known for 12 hours was potentially worse than death. She felt her answer before she thought it. Yes. The hunters moved, recognizing the decision, trying to stop what came next. But Samael was faster. Despite the wounds, despite the fragmentation, despite 300 years of exhaustion, he moved with speed that blurred reality. He crossed 30 feet in a heartbeat, ripped Iris free from the hunter's grip, and pulled her against his chest. His scarred hand pressed against her sternum where the testimonial mark burned. His tattooed hand cupped the back of her head. Both wings, white and black, bleeding and disintegrating, wrapped around them both, creating a cocoon of light and shadow. "This is going to hurt," he whispered, dual voice soft against her ear. "I'm sorry." "Stop apologizing," she said. Her hands gripped his jacket, feeling his heart beating against her palm. Two rhythms, angel and demon, out of sync but both racing. "Just don't let go." "Never." The bond exploded. Iris felt herself dissolving. Not physically. Her body was still there, still solid, still real. But her sense of self, the borders that defined where she ended and Samael began, those evaporated like morning fog. Suddenly she was everywhere and nowhere. She was Iris looking at Samael, and Samael looking at Iris, and both of them looking at each other, and the recursion went infinite. She felt his 300 years flooding into her awareness. Not memories this time, identity. She was Samael watching his mother die. Samael killing for the first time. Samael standing over the body of the last other first-generation Nephilim. Samael deciding to die alone in a parking lot. Samael seeing Iris and choosing to live. And he felt her. Combat medic in Afghanistan. Seeing the demon in the cave. The discharge. The diagnosis. The gun. The random knock at the door. The 2 years of half-living. The night in the parking lot when she found a stranger dying and chose to save him. Their memories wove together, threads becoming rope becoming cable, until she couldn't tell which experiences were hers and which were his. The distinction stopped mattering. They were both. They were neither. They were something new forming in the space between. Through the cocoon of wings, she heard the clockwork thing shouting orders, heard weapons. Charging, spells being cast, the hunters preparing to strike. Too late. The testimonial bond completed its evolution, and Iris and Samael stopped being two separate entities. They became one. The world reformed around them slowly, like reality was remembering how to exist. Iris opened her eyes, their eyes, and saw through vision that was doubled but unified, seeing from two perspectives that had somehow merged into singular perception. She was still herself. Still Iris Chen, 27. Ex-military, veterinarian, with a destroyed clinic and negative bank account. But she was also Samael. 300 years of memories sat in her head as naturally as her own childhood. She knew what it felt like to have wings, to feel angel and demon warring inside one body, to watch centuries pass while everyone you knew died. And Samael was her. She felt his awareness of her life, her trauma, her choices, integrated so completely that when she thought about Afghanistan, he remembered it as if he'd been there. When he thought about his first kill, she carried the weight of it. They were separate. They were together. They were something that had never existed before. The hunters had frozen mid-attack, weapons raised but not firing. Through their merged perception, Iris Samael could see the confusion on their faces. The clockwork thing's gears had stopped entirely, processing something it had no framework to understand. "What?" The angel's voice faltered. "What are you?" Good question. Iris Samael stood. Their body was Samael's, but moved with Iris's muscle memory and his supernatural strength combined. The wounds were still there, bleeding 3 colors, but the pain was distant. Shared between two consciousnesses, it became manageable. "We are..." They stopped. Their voice was strange. Not dual voice anymore. Something else. Harmonized. Samael's 2 tones and Iris's singular voice braided together into something that resonated in frequencies that shouldn't exist. "We are what?" Happens when you push people past the point of having anything left to lose. Through their shared awareness, they felt the bond still burning in their chest. Not testimonial mark anymore. Something evolved, symbiotic. They were 2 souls occupying one body, but the body was adapting, changing. The scars on the left side were fading slightly. The tattoos on the right side were settling, no longer writhing. Angel and demon weren't at war anymore. They had a third party mediating. Human. Consciousness. Iris's humanity, creating bridge between the warring halves. The fragmentation was slowing. Not stopped. They could still feel it, the slow dissolution of Nephilim biology. But where it had been days from terminal, now it was weeks. Maybe months. Human grounding was buying time. Impossible. The demon breathed. Full integration should have killed you both. Should have. They smiled, and it was Iris's expression on Samael's face. Seems to be a pattern with us. The clockwork. Things' gears started again, processing rapidly. New classification required. Entity is neither human nor Nephilim. Hybrid consciousness in single body. No existing termination protocols. Recommendation: capture for study. Yeah, we're not doing that. They moved, and it was beautiful. Samael's speed and power, Iris's tactical training and human adaptability. They covered 20 feet before the hunters could react, grabbed the nearest angel by its wing, and used 300 years of combat. Experience combined with 2 years of hand-to-hand military training to flip it into the demon. Both went down in a tangle of wings and claws. "Hostile entity," the clockwork thing announced. "Engage with lethal force." The human hunters opened fire. Bullets that glowed with celestial iron, designed to neutralize supernatural entities. They felt them hit, chest, shoulder, leg, and the pain was extraordinary. But it was split between two awareness, and what would have been incapacitating became bearable. They moved through the gunfire like water, Samael's instincts predicting trajectories, Iris's training providing counter-moves. Got close to the first human hunter, disarmed him with a technique she'd learned in basic, threw the weapon to the second hunter's head with strength that was purely Samael's. The clockwork thing was the real threat. It moved with mechanical precision, no hesitation, no fear. Blades extended from its arms, celestial iron, designed to neutralize demon half. It struck fast, aiming for the heart. They caught the blade, with their bare hand. It cut deep, golden blood and red blood mixing, but they held on. And through their merged consciousness, they understood something the clockwork thing didn't. Celestial iron neutralized demon half, but Iris's human consciousness was insulating that half, creating buffer. The weapon was less effective against hybrid entity than pure Nephilim. "New information," they said, twisting the blade until it snapped. "Your weapons don't work the same on us." They drove the broken blade into the clockwork thing's chest. Gears shrieked, mechanisms grinding to halt. It looked down at the blade, then at them, with empty eyes that somehow conveyed surprise. "Adaptation," it said, voice glitching. "Unprecedented. Must report. Must..." It collapsed into component parts, gears scattering across asphalt, ticking their last rotations. The remaining hunters, 2 angels, 1 demon, 1 human, regrouped. Wary now, recognizing that their target had changed into something they weren't prepared for. "Withdraw," one angel said. "Report to councils. Recommend new classification and updated protocols." "We're letting it escape?" the demon demanded. "We're preserving assets for proper engagement." The angel's wings spread. "This entity is beyond our current authorization level. Requires specialist response." They lifted into the air, the demon following, the remaining human hunter backing toward his vehicle. Within minutes, the highway was empty, except for Iris Samael, the destroyed Jeep, and the scattered remains of the clockwork thing. Silence settled. Through their shared awareness, they felt Samael's relief warring with Iris's disbelief. They'd survived. Against odds that were basically non-existent, they'd survived. "What do we do now?" they asked out loud, still getting used to the merged voice. Through their combined consciousness, they felt the answer forming. Not from Samael or Iris individually, but from the new entity they'd become. They had weeks, maybe months before fragmentation became terminal, even with human grounding. They had 20 Nephilim in Seattle, who were marked for execution. They had knowledge, 300 years of Samael's experience combined with Iris's tactical military training and medical knowledge. They had choice. Seattle, they decided. Warn the community. Get them somewhere safe. They looked down at their body, Samael's form, but moving with Iris's determination. Then we figure out what we are and what that means. They started walking, leaving the jeep behind. Through their shared awareness, they felt both Iris's grief for the destroyed vehicle and Samael's relief at being mobile despite the wounds. The duality was strange but not uncomfortable, like learning to see with both eyes after having vision in only one. Mile marker 312 was where they found the second body, another young Nephilim, crystallized in death. Through Samael's memories, they recognized her. Sophia, 4th generation, artist, 23 in appearance, harmless, dead anyway. They knelt beside her, placed one hand on the crystallized chest. Through their merged awareness, they felt both Samael's guilt and Iris's anger. The guilt said this was his fault for existing. The anger said this was the Hunt's fault for choosing genocide. The anger won. They're killing children, they said. Their voice resonated with fury that was both Samael's centuries of suppressed rage and Iris's fresh horror. Killing kids who never hurt anyone just because they're inconvenient. Through their bond, not testimonial anymore, something deeper, they felt certainty crystallizing. This wasn't sustainable. The Great Hunt couldn't be outrun forever. The councils wouldn't stop until every Nephilim was dead or imprisoned. But maybe a hybrid entity that was neither fully human nor fully Nephilim could do something neither could do alone. Maybe they could broker third option. Maybe they could create space for people like Sophia to exist without being hunted. Maybe they could change the rules. Ambitious, Samael's part of their consciousness observed. Impossible, Iris's part agreed. Good, they said together. We're good at impossible. They walked through the night, their body healing slowly as human and supernatural systems learned to cooperate. By dawn, they reached the outskirts of Seattle. The city sprawled before them, hiding 20 Nephilim who didn't know they were, marked for death. Through their shared awareness, they felt Ariadne's presence, Samael's memory of her location, Iris's tactical assessment of approach. They were tired, wounded, fundamentally changed in ways they were still processing. But they were alive, together. One entity made from 2 people who'd each been alone too long. The testimonial mark had evolved into something unprecedented. Not bond anymore. Unity. They were Iris who remembered being Samael. They were Samael who remembered being Iris, separate and merged, distinct and unified. They walked into Seattle as the sun rose, casting long shadows that were both white light and black void. Behind them, the Great Hunt was regrouping, planning new strategies for entity they couldn't classify. Ahead of them, Nephilim who needed warning that the world had declared them extinct. And inside them, 2 people who'd chosen each other over survival, who'd merged rather than die alone, who'd become something new rather than accept. Termination. Think we can actually change anything? Iris's consciousness asked Samael's. No idea, Samael's consciousness answered. But we've got time to try. Weeks, maybe months. Then let's make them count. They entered the city together, neither fully human nor fully Nephilim, but something that had never existed before. Something that proved that compassion could evolve into unity, that love could transcend the boundaries of self, that 2 broken people could merge into something whole. The Great Hunt would come again. New protocols, new weapons, new strategies. But Iris Samael would be ready. They had each other now, completely, permanently, for however long they had left. And that was enough. Iris had $1,200 and a choice. She could have walked away from that dying stranger in the parking lot. She could have kept her surgery money, fixed her knee, continued her quiet life of survival. Instead, she chose compassion over comfort, connection over safety. And in doing so, she didn't just save a life. She transformed 2 broken existences into something unprecedented. Sometimes the people we save end up saving us in ways we never imagined. Sometimes spending everything we have on someone we just met makes more sense than a lifetime of careful preservation. The question isn't whether love at first sight is real. It's whether you're brave enough to recognize it when it costs you everything. What would you have done in that parking lot? Would you have stopped for someone bleeding 3 colors, someone whose very existence violated the laws of nature? Would you have emptied your bank account for a stranger? Would you have pulled the trigger to protect someone you'd known for 6 hours? And if your soul became bound to theirs, if you could feel every century of their pain, every moment of their loneliness, would you choose to merge with them completely, knowing you might both cease to exist? These are the questions that separate survival from living, safety from meaning, existing from truly being alive. If this story made you feel something, if Iris and Samael's impossible choice resonated with the part of you that understands what it means to be alone, to be broken, to find someone who sees you anyway, then follow this channel for more stories that dig into the raw places we usually hide. Hit that like button if you believe compassion is worth the cost. Share this with someone who needs to remember that being seen is worth the risk of being hurt. Because in the end, we're all just looking for someone who will spend their last dollar to keep us breathing. And maybe, just maybe, we can be that person for someone else.